When I was a kid, I wanted to cosplay as Fire Nation Aang. Maybe I'll cosplay as him one of these days. What's up guys, Blood Moon Bobby here. This is probably my fourth take of this video, but I didn't want my head cut out of the frame, or at least not by that much. So here I am doing another take on this video. You know, it's funny how last week most of my videos were tech related, and I kind of feel really bad because I know the majority of you guys subscribe to this channel really like the cartoon related or animation related content. So I was basically spending the last weekend hoping and praying for an animation topic, and I'd get this one bombshell of a news story. But before we get into it, I kind of just wanted to tell you guys a little bit about how I got into Avatar. So I want to start off by saying that I used to be a really huge fan of Avatar. You know how nowadays I'm a really huge Star Wars The Force of Evil fan? As a kid, Avatar was kind of the same thing to me. Like, I liked it just as much as a Star in those days, and still remains one of, if not my absolute favorite Nicktoon. It was probably one of the first shows I watched that had a continuous story, and it was one of the first where my dad, who also got into the show, sat me down, and he would really start getting into analyzing the plot, characters, and trying to figure out what comes next. That, and also, just like Star, it's so weird how, like with Star, on the surface it looks like, oh, magical princess with her pony friend, doesn't look very interesting, but its plot and characters easily make it one of Disney's best shows. It's so weird how Avatar is kind of the same thing, because at the time I wasn't really watching a lot of action shows, or definitely not as much anime. Not that I hate anime or action shows, it just wasn't my thing. And nowadays I like watching every once in a while, especially when Steven invites me and Gabby over to his place and we see a really cool show. No, but I really wasn't. And then when my sister introduced me to Avatar, I was around 10 at the time, it became easily one of my favorite shows. And even to this day, it still is one of my favorite shows. And just like Starco, I also got into the romance of Avatar, particularly Katang. I really shipped them as a couple throughout the whole series. I was just waiting and waiting for them to finally get together. And every time in Katara would kiss Aang on the cheek, I would be like, ooh, cool. I won't get into like my specific details on like how I felt about the romance throughout the particular series, but it was a really cute thing. But hey, even if you don't get into shipping, I think even before this reboot series comes out, whether or not it's good, you should definitely check out Avatar: The Last Airbender. Whether you binge watch it or you take your time, just no matter how you do it, please check out the original series before this reboot comes up so you know what's up. But now we're getting word that Netflix and Nickelodeon are teaming up to produce a new live-action Avatar: The Last Airbender show, and it's really crazy. I have a quote here from the original creators. The original creators, Michael DiMartino and Bryan Konietzko, are actually going to be executive producers and showrunners on this new series, and their quote here says, quote, "We're thrilled for the opportunity to helm this live-action adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender. We can't wait to realize Aang's world as cinematically as we always wanted it to be, and with a culturally appropriate, non-whitewashed cast, which I'll get into in a second. It's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to build upon everyone's great work on the original animated series and go even deeper into the characters, story, action, and world building. Netflix is wholly dedicated to manifesting our vision for this retelling, and we're incredibly grateful to be partnering with them again." So it's funny, like when they mention we're going to make a culturally appropriate, non-whitewashed, and we're going to realize our live action vision. It's funny, I kind of feel like they're taking a jab at the M. Night Shyamalan Last Airbender movie you guys might remember, which my thoughts on that movie are pretty much the same as everybody else that's reviewed it. Dennis Zen, Chris Stuckman, Doug Walker, if you still like him. The monotone acting, the unnecessary changes. I will say, unlike them, another problem I have with Shyamalan's movie is that I didn't think the special effects were really good, particularly the water bending. So I think they just kind of mentioned that just to say, hey, don't worry, unlike Last Airbender, we're going to get it right. So it is kind of funny how I think this is the first time I'm at least hearing them at least insinuating that they didn't like The Last Airbender. Not that, I mean, I really didn't like it either, but this is the first time I'm hearing that they, you know, said publicly, yeah, we didn't like it as much, so we're not going to screw it up in the Netflix show. But given it's that both the original show's creators, DiMartino and Konietzko, are in this. And I'm not saying that everything they create is gold. Cough, cough. I didn't really like The Legend of Korra. I watched like 5 episodes of Korra, and I was just like, I can't get into this show. So it's not that I'm saying anything they touch is gold, but since they're the original creators, and I still think they're really smart dudes, I think they can still produce a pretty decent series. But I'll get into more of my thoughts in a minute, because I actually have another quote here from Netflix VP of Kids and Family Content, Melissa Cobb, and she says, quote, "We are committed to honoring Bryan and Mike's vision for this retelling and are thrilled to support them on creating a live-action event series, bringing Aang's epic world of elemental magic to life for global audiences on Netflix," said. So, yeah, it's so, it's so weird. When I first heard the announcement that Netflix and Nickelodeon are making a live-action Avatar series, I kind of felt I just felt this very big sense of doom. Not in the sense of, you can't change a single word. You change one little thing about Avatar The Last Airbender, it just completely ruins it. Like, I can't stand people like that. And my concern was actually that they weren't going to change enough. That it was just going to be a live-action Avatar, but they wouldn't change the story and characters all that much. Which, I would be accepting of that idea if it was 20, 30, 40, 50 years since Avatar first came out. I mean, yes, I know Avatar first came out in 2005, it ended in 2008, and it's basically been 10 years since it started and finished. I mean, yeah, it's a long time, but it's not like super nostalgia. It's been an entire generation since the original series, kind of long time. So that was my initial concern. But when I reread DiMartino and Konietzko's quote saying, hey, we're going to delve deeper into the plot, characters, and the world building, then I sort of shifted into thinking, hey, this could actually work. And yeah, I think it really can. Like, my thought process on this is, I don't think Konietzko and DiMartino should change the basic story and characters. Like, don't change the idea it's about Aang, the Avatar, and he has to learn earth bending, fire bending, and water bending in order to defeat Fire Lord Ozai. Like, the basic foundation doesn't need to change. But what can change, even just for the sake of just building up hype and just keeping us guessing the entire time, is maybe they could change how we get to the different plot points of the original Avatar story. Like, maybe we could do a thing where, if you guys remember in the first season of Avatar, Aang comes across this fisherman who's like, you're the reason the war went on for 100 years because you disappeared for 100 years. And Aang flies away and Katara goes after him, asking him, what really happened. Why did Aang leave the Southern Air Temple and things like that? So maybe they could change it where instead of a fisherman provoking Aang, maybe it could be a thing where Aang is trying to get good at waterbending, but because he's distracted by reminders of his past, as it distracts him from his training, and Katara puts her foot down saying, hey, we can't go forward with this. You're clearly bothered by the past. Let's talk about it. Or maybe something else they could do is, instead of making an exact shot-for-shot copy of the Zuko Alone episode, maybe we can get something like maybe doing an episode about what happened to Zuko's mom. And yes, I know a book was written after the show ended explaining what happened, but I still think seeing an actual episode showing what happened would still be a really good idea, and it would be a really good opportune time to do it for this live-action Avatar series. So I think if they changed up how we get to the different plot points, like doing more of a retelling of Avatar rather than a clone or a rehash, I think it could generally build up excitement. Because the thing is, if they just stuck to the exact same story, they changed nothing much other than just making live action, which it would still be cool regardless. It would be kind of like a martial arts movie. But if they didn't change much of the plot and characters, I think it would entice new fans because they've never seen the original series. But fans of the original show are going to be all like, it's just the same show. Why am I watching this? If I wanted to see Avatar again, I just watched the original show. So, as I check my microphone. Whereas if I think they changed up some things, do a retelling, make some variations, and maybe the characters and how we get to the different plot points, you would not only get the fans, the newcomers excited because they've never seen the original series, but it will also engage fans because then they could speculate, well, the original series did this, but then again, and Zuko, like let's say Zuko for example, he may be the bad guy, but he's not a totally evil monster like Azula or his dad, so maybe they'll go this way instead, kind of things like that. Like if they can make those changes, I think it could excite all of us. And this is more of a nitpick for me, but I also kind of hope with the new series that they improve the dialogue of Avatar: The Last Airbender. Not that in the original series it was bad, but for my taste, it got kind of talky, and the comedy especially could get really corny. Like, when I say it got really talky at times, I mean, like, whenever they have to explain things, or maybe not whenever, but there were times when they were explaining, like, the philosophy and the bending. I think it was kind of long-winded, and there were many times, like, when, like, let's take, for example, when Katara explains to Aang that the reason it was hard for him to learn earthbending is because he's learning an element that's his total opposite. Air is opposite to earth, and it goes into this really long-winded discussion, and I'm just like, okay, I get it. And yes, I know the writing of Avatar is trying to go in that sort of anime. Again, not hating on anime, but I know they're going for that kind of really explaining how things work, really explaining the philosophy, the bending, the characters, and so forth. Like, I know they're going for that particular style, but for me, maybe I'm just the person who doesn't like getting spoon-fed every single detail. Like, I can figure things out. I'm just kind of thinking maybe they could leave more of the character development. Like, they could still talk about it, but they could leave more of it up to things like visual storytelling, or we witness it with how a character, interacts with the other characters, around him or her. Or something like the humor I should also talk about. I kind of felt the humor in the original Avatar: The Last Airbender was really corny. Not that it's bad, but it's just when I look back on a lot of the jokes, I kind of cringe. Particularly with the character Sokka, who I like Sokka. He's a very smart character and he definitely serves his purpose, but I kind of feel a lot of his really jokey scenes could get really corny. Like, I remember in particular, there was this one time Aang went to this Fire Nation school and he gets in trouble with the headmaster, and so he brings in Sokka and Katara to be his parents, and Sokka comes in with a beard and says, his name is Fire, Wang Fire, and this is my wife, Sapphire. And it's just like, that was really corny. And look, I'm not saying that this new show needs to have like more adult jokes. Like, you don't need adult jokes to be funny. You could be, a kid-oriented show like Hey Arnold or Star vs. Forces of Evil and have some really funny jokes that don't necessarily pertain in an adult direction. So I think if the jokes were a lot more sharp and funny rather than just corny tee-hee ha-ha, I think that would be a really nice improvement. But the improvement that I think that really needs to happen to make this reboot work is the one I said earlier, where I said maybe changing how we get from point A to point B without changing the very basic foundation. Because as I said, I feel like if they just kept the plot and characters the same, it would still be interesting to newcomers, but fans of the original show would just say, what's the point? Why am I watching this? If I wanted to see Avatar again, I'll just watch the original show like on Amazon Prime. Whereas if they change things up, changing how we get from point A to point B, it could be interesting to both new and current fans of the original series, because it'll be interesting to both of them. So that's really the change I need to see happen. Things like fixing up the dialogue and the humor, they're nice things to have, but I'm just saying that's kind of more of a personal pet peeve. So, but anyway, please let me know your thoughts down below. Are you excited for this new Avatar: The Last Airbender reboot? Will you be checking it out? Me personally, I'll be checking it out regardless, is because I want to form my own opinions. I don't just gonna want to go running around saying, hey, Saber Spark said this or Pie Guy Royal said that. I want to see this show for myself, not just as a journalist, but also because I'm a huge fan of the original Avatar: The Last Airbender. So definitely excited. Please let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. If you have any ideas for videos in the future, please feel free to email me. My email address is in the description, and you can also leave me a comment. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all later. Hey guys, be sure to like this Blood Moon Bobby video if you enjoyed it. Please share this video, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment. Be sure to ring the notification bell to be notified about my latest upload. Follow me on my social media pages at BloodMoonBobby to find out about what I'll be covering next and for more of my opinions. Thanks for watching.